My buddy's life got messed up big time. Let's tell this tale about my pal, who we'll call Jake. Jake was really into using dating apps, especially Tinder. I watched how it wrecked his life in a pretty scary way, right before my eyes. Jake was the kind of guy who'd meet a bunch of girls on these apps. He wasn't mean or anything, just really into the whole dating scene. He made sure that everyone he met knew what was up. They all knew it was just a fun, no-strings-attached kind of thing. At least, that's what he told me. But things took a turn for Jake, and a lot of it was because of this lifestyle he had. But there's more to it, because sometimes you bump into really terrible people out there. So, this one day, which seemed just like any other, Jake was chatting with a few girls on Tinder. Now, you gotta know that Jake and I shared a room in our college dorm. It was an evening after our classes, and Jake was in a really good mood, grinning ear to ear. He told me he'd met someone on Tinder who had a friend, and they were both into meeting up together for some fun. I'd never seen him so pumped up about a date. That Saturday, around 7 p.m., Jake headed out to meet these two girls at a bar nearby. Normally, he'd text me after his dates to let me know how it went, or if he'd be staying out late. But when it hit 2 a.m. and I hadn't gotten a single message, I thought maybe he'd stayed over at one of their places. I was just chilling, having a few beers and playing some PU Big. I stepped outside for a smoke, and when I walked out of the dorms, I almost tripped over Jake. He was sitting right there on the front steps. "What's up, man?" I asked, kind of laughing. But he didn't say anything. I sat down beside him and got a real shock. His eye was bruised and he was crying. I'd never seen Jake cry before. "Jake, dude, are you all right? What happened?" I asked. But Jake just stayed silent. After that night, Jake packed up and went back to his parents' house for the rest of the semester. He didn't say much, just that he needed some time off. I was really worried about him. He seemed totally broken by whatever went down that night, and I was left wondering what could have happened to him. Everyone was curious about Jake, wanting to know what had happened. It wasn't until he came back the following semester that he finally opened up to me, and honestly, he looked even more worn out than before. That evening, as he was unpacking in our dorm room, I just had to ask. We were best buddies after all. I was dying to understand what had gone down with him. It was bothering me a lot. Jake finally sat down with me to spill the beans. I'll be honest, I thought I was ready to hear it, but I really wasn't. That night he had gone out to meet those two girls. He headed to the bar they had chosen. In the crazy flashing lights of the place, someone grabbed him and yanked him into the bathroom. This person was wearing a dress, so Jake thought it was one of the Tinder girls. But once he got into the bathroom, another guy pushed him against the wall and hit him hard, knocking him out cold. When Jake came to, his wallet was missing, his clothes were all messed up, and he was bleeding a little. And well, to be straightforward, his backside was hurting. Jake was too ashamed and upset to tell anyone, so he decided to go home. He needed some time to process what had happened. Jake went for his regular health checkup, something he did every year. And that's when the final blow hit him. Jake found out he had HIV. This should be a warning to everyone. You've got to be cautious. Sure, have fun, but always be safe. And definitely think twice before meeting up with strangers you've never actually seen in person. There are folks out there looking to take advantage of others. I see what happened to my best friend Jake every day, and believe me, it's the kind of thing you wouldn't wish on anyone. My story starts with the end of a long and uninspiring relationship. I was longing for something more physical, but my former boyfriend wasn't interested in that. So, once we parted ways, I began to seek out new companions without much thought. I was desperate for affection, and at that time, I wasn't too picky about who I spent my nights with. This is when a peculiar person enters my tale. His online profile caught my eye, mostly because of his unusual name. He boasted about having 6 dogs, and one of his pictures showed him with his large, muscular dog, which I think was a pit bull. He was reasonably attractive, and as someone who adores dogs, I couldn't resist swiping right. We matched, but initially we didn't chat much. Then one evening, driven by my desires, I decided to message him. He seemed eager to meet, and there were no immediate red flags. He arrived with a pack of red apple cider, and we headed to my dorm room to chat. As we talked, I couldn't shake off the unsettling feeling he gave me. Despite this, we ended up being intimate. Afterward, he surprised me by asking if I would be his girlfriend, but I declined. I just wanted him to leave as quickly as possible. Months passed, and I stopped responding to his messages, but he persisted in trying to contact me. Finally, one day, I gathered the courage to reply. I decided it was time to clearly express my feelings and set boundaries. I told him the truth. I was now in a committed relationship with a woman. I had been exploring my sexuality and realized I was a lesbian, not bisexual. I hoped this would discourage him, but instead, he tried to guilt-trip me into cheating on my imaginary girlfriend. Thankfully, after a bit of persistence, he backed off. Months later, I was sitting with my friend Paige having lunch. She was browsing through Facebook, and we started discussing her weird step-cousin. Suddenly, she showed me a photo that made my heart drop. It was the same guy I had met on Tinder, and then she shared more about him that was truly disturbing. He had a troubled past, including an attempt to take his own life when he was very young. Paige revealed that he had been emotionally abusive towards some of his past girlfriends, and had even stolen money from her stepdad. What was even more shocking was his casual boasting about almost ending someone's life, for which he only got a short sentence because he was a minor at the time. He seemed to wear this as a badge of honor, hinting he might do it again. On top of all this, he was heavily into drugs, yet, surprisingly, he had a wife all this while. Seeing my shocked face, Paige asked if I was all right. I confessed to her that I had met her cousin on Tinder. Her reaction was a mix of disbelief and worry. I admitted to her that we had been intimate, which made her even more upset. We were both stunned, trying to process all this. I was so embarrassed, and now those unsettling vibes I'd felt around him made perfect sense. I continued to use Tinder for a while after that, but due to this and other strange encounters, I eventually decided to stop. It's a reminder that when you're dating online, you should always be prepared for some unnerving experiences. This story unfolds in a small town, and it's about a young person, say 14 years old, living in a place called Maple Grove. This kid, whom we'll name Alex, decided to try out Tinder, not really expecting much from it. Maybe a few odd people and perhaps a friend or two around their age. Alex's buddy, we'll name him Max, had already been using the app and seemed to like it a lot. So, Alex, feeling curious, thought, why not? Upon signing up, Alex was thrilled. Getting matched with strangers was intriguing. It felt like a chance to meet new people and perhaps make some friends. Among these matches, one stood out due to their strange username. It was just a series of ones and zeros. It struck Alex as odd, but they shrugged it off, thinking maybe the person was just quirky or trying to be humorous. This particular match, let's call them Binary, was very active in messaging. Day and night messages kept coming in. Binary didn't share much about themselves, always more interested in learning about Alex, where they lived, what they did. Alex, feeling uneasy, often ignored these questions. Eventually, overwhelmed by the constant messaging, Alex stopped using Tinder and blocked its notifications. One day, driven by curiosity, Alex looked up Binary's username, but found nothing. User doesn't exist, the app claimed. It was unsettling. Alex even reinstalled the app, hoping for some clarity, and messaged Binary asking about the account's existence. There was no response. Alex thought maybe it was a hacker or a glitch in the app. Getting no answers, Alex deleted the app once more, wondering if they were overreacting. One afternoon, while home alone, Alex was searching for an old toy from the 1980s in their room. It was a cool little collectible. Alex's parents, who were away on a trip to a sunny beach destination, never touched their stuff, so it had to be around. Suddenly, out of nowhere, the toy fell on Alex's head. Startled and confused, Alex looked up but saw nothing. Then their phone beeped. It was a message from Binary on Tinder, but how? Alex was sure they had deleted the app. The message was eerie and simple. Did you find it? Panicked, Alex dropped their phone and ran out of the room, slamming the door behind them. Since then, nothing more weird happened, and Alex stayed away from Tinder and similar apps. After the bizarre incident with the toy and the Tinder message, Alex thought things had settled down. But then, out of the blue, a text message arrived on their phone. The message wasn't ordinary. It was a string of ones and zeros binary code. Alex, feeling a wave of fear, decided to use an online translator to decode the message. The translation sent a chill down their spine. I'm always watching. This message got Alex thinking about the risks of meeting strangers online, especially through dating apps. It's a world where anyone can pretend to be someone else. Alex mused. I could even pretend to be a young teen online, but that would attract all sorts of wrong attention. The thought was frightening. The idea that people could be out there, pretending, lurking, possibly with bad intentions towards others, maybe even towards kids. As a warning to others, Alex decided to share this experience online. They made a video talking about the importance of being careful and trusting your gut feelings when interacting with people you meet online. It might just save your life, Alex warned in the video. The biggest mistake happened during the Christmas holidays. I had just quit my job as a waitress at a small diner and was stuck at home for a few days because I was grounded. I was supposed to stay in the house, but I chose to stay in my room. I spent my time on social media, mainly Twitter, but I also used dating apps to pass the time. Tinder was the one I used the most. I wasn't totally honest about my age on the app, but I did mention in my profile that I was only 18. I was very selective, swiping right for maybe just one guy out of 20. I didn't think too much about the ones I chose. Some messaged me, some didn't. I had many short and meaningless chats that didn't lead anywhere. Then I met a guy named Zach on the app. He said he was about 25 and was really good looking. He sent me a funny pickup line, and we started flirting. After a while, he asked for my phone number, and I gave it to him without thinking twice. We texted all night long. Our conversation was easygoing, but Zach wasn't great at spelling or using correct grammar. I actually found that kind of charming. It was around 3 in the morning when I fell asleep, leaving Zach and everyone else I was chatting with without a reply. I thought they would understand that I had just fallen asleep given how late it was, but this wasn't the case. When I woke up around 11 a.m., I found 12 missed calls, 3 or 4 voicemails, and about 10 text messages, all from Zach. At first, Zach seemed like a calm and nice guy over text, but his messages and voicemails were shocking. I had never heard or read such horrible, threatening words. He said many awful things, but the worst message read, "Okay, since you want to ignore me, I'll treat you badly. When I see you, I'll show you what I do to people who ignore me. Ever had a broken jaw? It's painful, and I can't wait." He said some really scary things. Right after that scary message from Zach, I blocked him and didn't even think about replying. I deleted all his texts and voicemails, trying my best to erase the whole scary experience from my mind. I didn't tell a soul about it, especially not my mom. If she found out, she would definitely have taken my phone away. 2 days went by, and I was still stuck at home, just lying around in my room. It was late at night, everyone else was asleep, and I was feeling super bored. I was thinking about the whole thing with Zach when it hit me. I had blocked him on everything except Tinder, where we first met. I had turned off my notifications for Tinder, so I hadn't thought to check it. When I logged back in, there were tons of messages from Zach. I didn't plan to read them, but the beginning of his message caught my eye. He wrote that he knew where I lived, and that he was outside my house. Even mentioning it had 2 stories. This could have been a lucky guess. Lots of houses have 2 stories. But what really scared me was his location. He used to be 30 miles away, but now his profile showed he was less than a mile away. I panicked, deleted him, and closed my Tinder account right away. I regretted it later because I didn't save any of it as evidence. I was too frightened and foolish to tell anyone. I spent the whole night looking out my window. I even let one of our dogs sleep in my room for comfort. I was so scared I felt sick. I stayed up until the morning and then slept until the afternoon. When I finally went downstairs, my mom had some really creepy news. She said a man had come to our door asking for me, claiming he knew me from church. I didn't even go to church back then. My mom, being smart, told him he was at the wrong house and then called the police to describe him. She didn't wake me up, thinking he was just some random weirdo and that I didn't know him. He asked for her daughter, not using my name. If this was Zach, I had no clue how he found me. I moved to live with my older sister after the longest month ever. The only thing that might have been related to Zach was an old beat-up green car I sometimes saw on our street. It probably wasn't him, but I couldn't help feeling nervous. This whole ordeal still haunts me, and I haven't used Tinder since. I want to remind everyone, girls and guys, to be super careful when using social media and talking to strangers. You never really know who's on the other side of the screen. In my early 30s, I was single and kind of shy. I hadn't been in a serious relationship yet. I dated a few guys, but nothing lasted more than a month. We just didn't click. I decided to try online dating to find someone who shared my interests. I tried several dating sites like OkCupid and eHarmony, but I didn't have much luck. The guys who messaged me were a bit odd. Their profiles and the way they spoke were off-putting. They seemed too intense, so I avoided them. Then, I checked out the App Store and found Tinder. I'd heard a lot about it and its famous swipe right feature. One evening, after work, I decided to try Tinder. I bought the Tinder Gold membership and started swiping. I swiped left a lot, but there were some interesting guys. I also saw some funny joke accounts. After a while, I took a break and watched Fortnite streams on my TV. About an hour later, my phone pinged with a notification. I had some matches on Tinder. 3 guys had swiped right on me. I was thrilled. It was working better than any other app. I looked through the matches and messaged a guy named Connor, who was 22 years old. He was tall, half Cuban, and very handsome. He was studying pre-law, which impressed me. I sent him a message and he replied quickly. We hit it off and chatted all evening. I hadn't felt this excited about someone in years. Connor was fascinating. He came from a hard-working family, held 2 jobs to support his mom and pay for college. After a week of talking, we planned to meet at a small concert in the park. He surprisingly had the day off. I dressed up and carried pepper spray, just to be safe. I got to the park and found a spot in the back. The crowd was gathering in front, and I hoped Connor would find me. As I waited, I noticed more people arriving. Some were families, others were groups of friends. The atmosphere was lively, with music playing softly in the background. I checked my phone. Connor hadn't messaged yet. I started feeling a bit nervous. What if he didn't show up? I shook off the thought and tried to enjoy the music. The band started playing, and their upbeat tunes filled the air. I tapped my foot to the rhythm, still scanning the crowd for Connor. People were dancing and having a good time. I smiled, feeling the excitement of the concert. Just then, I saw someone walking towards me. It was a guy about Connor's age, but I couldn't tell if it was him. My heart raced as he got closer. He had a friendly smile and looked around, as if searching for someone. As he approached, I realized it wasn't Connor. Disappointed, I turned my attention back to the concert. The music was great, but I couldn't fully enjoy it, wondering where Connor was. The night went on, and there was still no sign of him. I checked my phone multiple times, but there were no messages. I started to feel a mix of worry and frustration. Had something happened to him, or had he changed his mind? The concert was nearing its end, and the band played their final song. The crowd cheered and clapped. I clapped along, but my mind was elsewhere. As people started leaving, I stayed in my seat, hoping for a last-minute appearance by Connor. But as the park emptied and the lights dimmed, I realized he wasn't coming. I felt a mix of sadness and confusion. Why hadn't he shown up? Did I do something wrong? I stood up, ready to leave, when my phone buzzed. It was a message from Connor. I opened it, my heart pounding. What would he say? Would he apologize, or had something unexpected happened? I felt really down as I left the concert early. Connor hadn't shown up, and it hurt. I decided to walk home, which was about 1.5 miles away. I didn't want to ride the bus or take a taxi. About 15 minutes into my walk, I noticed someone behind me. This person was wearing a dark hoodie and kept a distance of about 20 yards from me. I held onto my pepper spray, just in case. I thought it was probably just another person heading home. I turned a few corners and crossed some streets, trying to shake off the feeling. When I looked back again, the man was still there, same distance. In better light, I could see he was about 6 feet tall, with a broad build and a thick beard. My heart started to race. He couldn't be following me, could he? He didn't look like Connor. I started to feel really nervous, and decided I needed to go somewhere with more people around. My home was too far. As I was trying to figure out what to do, I got distracted. Suddenly, I felt a cold, sticky hand over my mouth and an arm around my neck. I tried to scream and fight back. We both fell to the ground. I felt a sharp pain in my ribs, and then someone else was there, fighting the man. But the arm was still tight around me. Everything went black. I woke up in an ambulance with a broken rib, but safe. The man who had followed me, Carl, was arrested. A father walking his daughter home had seen me being attacked and helped me. Carl had been using fake profiles on dating apps to stalk and rob people. I couldn't understand why Carl would hurt me just to steal. It seemed like he had more sinister plans. After a few months, I tried using Tinder again. I wanted to believe that most people are good, but I couldn't forget that there are others like Carl out there. A few years ago, when I was 18, I want to tell you about myself. I'm not very tall, have bright green eyes, and long dark brown hair. I think I look pretty nice. It was summer break, and I wanted to do something a bit naughty. So one night, I sneaked out. I walked quietly through some trees behind my house to get to my friend's place. We hung out in her backyard, drinking beer, feeling cool. While we were a bit tipsy, we started talking about Tinder, which is a dating app. We thought it would be funny to mess around on it. My friend, let's call her Kay, didn't want her own account, so I made one. I downloaded Tinder and set up my profile. I was a little drunk, but knew I was just doing it for fun. On Tinder, we matched with some people, and soon my phone was buzzing like crazy. I put down my beer and told Kay I didn't really want a date. I planned to delete my account when I got home. No big deal, I thought, but I was wrong. It was almost 4 a.m., and I had to babysit the next day. I couldn't be hungover, so I told Kay I had to leave. We hugged, and I walked back home through the trees. 2 days later, I was babysitting the same kids I'd looked after for over a year. We were in the living room. I put on a movie for the youngest, Sadie, who was 5 and super cute. There was also Jacob, who was 10, and Ashton, who was 14. It was weird they needed a babysitter since Ashton was close to my age, but I didn't mind. I loved spending time with those kids. Sadie was sound asleep on the sofa. I carefully took her drink cup from her mouth, trying not to wake her. Jacob and Ashton were at the kitchen island, with Jacob annoying Ashton about something. I wasn't really listening to them. Walking over to them, my phone started vibrating. It was from Tinder, which surprised me because I hadn't gotten many messages since I downloaded it 2 days ago. I looked at the profile and thought it seemed fake, but I was just having fun, so I decided to play along. I thought Kay would laugh about this. A guy named Braxton, or that's what his Tinder name was, messaged me. His first message was scary. He wrote something about feeling my pulse while grabbing my neck. I read it many times, shocked. I couldn't believe someone would send such a creepy message. I felt really scared. Ashton and Jacob noticed and asked if I was okay because I gasped and turned red. I lied, saying I just had a bad headache. Then another message came. "Is that your family?" I was stunned, staring at my phone. Then he wrote, "You're all beautiful. You're mine now." This really scared me. I asked him who he was and told him to leave me and the kids alone. I blocked him and reported him right away. It's been some time since that happened. I try to think it was just someone playing a mean joke. I'm not sure, but I can't forget that story. Telling myself it was just a joke helps me not be so scared at night. Over the past few years, I've used the dating app Tinder and met several girls. None of these meetings turned into anything serious, except with my ex, Lisa. We were together for a few months, but then I discovered she was secretly married and had 3 kids. I was shocked because I had no clue she was lying, and her husband didn't know either. I broke up with her as soon as I found out, but I still felt really guilty. After taking some time off from dating, I decided to try Tinder again. That's when I started talking to Emily. She was pretty, easygoing, and had a great sense of humor. Her social media profile showed she wasn't married, which was a relief. We'd been messaging for about a month, but we hadn't met in person. Then, about a week ago, my friends invited me to a bar in Palm Springs for a birthday party. The bar was a 2-hour drive from my house, but I wanted to see my friends and celebrate the birthday, so I agreed to go. I looked up the bar online and saw it had live music and dancing. It seemed like the perfect place to finally meet Emily, especially since she lived only 30 minutes away from Palm Springs. I invited her, and she quickly agreed to come. She even teased me for taking so long to ask her out. After my last experience on Tinder, I wanted to be extra cautious. The party night arrived, and I got to the bar around 9 p.m. My friends were already there. Emily was supposed to meet me at 11. I spent the first couple of hours eating, dancing, and enjoying a few drinks. Right at 11, Emily texted me to say she had arrived. I went to the entrance to wait for her. As she walked in, I saw she was pushing an older man in a wheelchair. My heart sank a bit. The man looked frail and serious. Emily hugged me and said, "I hope you don't mind, but I brought my dad. He's not well." I was surprised because Emily had never mentioned her dad's condition. In fact, she had told me he had just returned from a trip to Haiti and they had dinner plans last week. I smiled and assured her it was fine. I introduced them to the birthday guy, making sure he knew not to stare. He greeted Emily and her dad warmly. We spent the next few hours at the party. Emily's dad was quiet and didn't speak to me at all. He just watched the people around him with a blank expression. When Emily and her dad left, they used a van specially equipped for the wheelchair. As they drove off, I texted Emily to say I had a great time and hoped her dad would feel better soon. I wished I could have talked to him more. After Emily texted me a simple thanks and didn't say anything else for about an hour, I started to wonder. Maybe she didn't enjoy meeting me, or perhaps she was just too busy taking care of her dad. Those were the only two explanations I could think of. Later that night, around 3 a.m., my friends and I decided to head over to my friend's sister's place for a few more drinks. It was only a 5-minute walk away, and we didn't want to risk driving under the influence. We were relaxing in her living room, music playing softly in the background, when something strange happened. The curtains were open, giving us a clear view of the street outside. Suddenly, my friend Mark pointed out the window and shouted, "Isn't that Emily's dad? The guy in the wheelchair?" I looked up and saw the same old man, alone in his wheelchair, rolling down the street. A chill ran down my spine. What was he doing out there by himself at this hour? I thought about texting Emily, but decided against it for some reason. Around 6 a.m., we all crashed in the living room, planning to grab breakfast at IHOP in the morning. At 7 a.m., I got up, freshened up, and walked to my car, still thinking about the odd sight from last night. As I drove towards IHOP, I saw Emily's dad again, sitting motionless in his wheelchair beside a tree on the sidewalk. I tried calling Emily, but she didn't answer. Now I was really worried. I turned my car around, intending to talk to him, but when I looked back, he was gone. I was baffled, but decided to go on with my day. While having breakfast, I couldn't stop thinking about Emily, so I decided to look through her Facebook profile. I know it sounds a bit creepy, but I was curious. I was scrolling through her photos when I felt that same eerie chill. There was a photo of Emily, her mom, and her dad after his trip from Haiti. But the man in the photo was definitely not the man in the wheelchair. He looked at least 20 years younger, healthier, and completely different. I couldn't believe it. Why would Emily lie about something like this? Just then, my phone dinged. It was a message from Emily, just 4 words that I still can't shake off. "Daddy didn't like you." Then she blocked me. That was the last I heard from her. I sat there stunned, trying to piece together the puzzle. Who was the old man in the wheelchair? Why did Emily bring him and pretend he was her father? And what did her message mean? So many questions, and no answers. But this was only the beginning of a much stranger journey, one that would take unexpected twists and turns, leading me down a path I never anticipated. At the age of 22, I was beginning a new chapter in my life. I had just moved into my first apartment, bought a car, secured a job, and was free from the responsibilities of school and parental oversight. Despite these achievements, I felt something was missing, a significant other. I longed for a serious relationship, so I decided to give online dating a try. I downloaded Tinder and started swiping through profiles of local women during my free time. Although I got some matches, none of them really engaged in conversation. Then one day, I stumbled upon a profile of a girl who seemed almost too good to be true. She was incredibly attractive, and I found myself more drawn to her than anyone I had ever seen. I swiped right, and to my surprise, we matched instantly. Skeptical yet intrigued, I spent the next 2 days immersed in our chats. Eventually, I gathered the courage to ask her out on a date. I braced myself for rejection or a hesitant response, but her reply was unexpected. She suggested with a playful wink that I should come over to her place instead. My excitement was through the roof when she agreed to meet, suggesting tomorrow at 9 p.m. I couldn't believe I was actually going to meet her. The night before our meeting, I was so thrilled that sleep seemed impossible. The following day, I spent hours preparing the best dinner I could manage, wanting to make a great impression. As the clock struck 9, I heard a knock at my door. My heart raced with anticipation as I opened it, and there she was, just as stunning in real life as in her photos. As I welcomed her in, completely mesmerized by her presence, I hardly noticed the large man following behind her. It wasn't until he pulled out a gun and hit me in the back of the head that I realized what was happening. When I regained consciousness, I found myself alone, my electronics and other valuables gone, including my phone. I rushed to my neighbor's place to call the police. Despite reporting the incident, there have been no leads on her or the man, no arrests made. The lesson I learned is clear. No matter how attractive someone may seem, it's always safer to meet in public places a few times before revealing where you live. I've often met guys through the dating app Tinder, and fortunately, I've always been safe. I considered myself fearless and trusted people easily. The men I met from Tinder and rode with in their cars were usually just ordinary guys, not at all strange or dangerous. I thought I was just fortunate, but that changed. I had been chatting with a guy on Tinder for some time. I was really struggling to move on from my previous relationship and hoped meeting someone new might help. This guy, whom I'll call Jake, seemed very down-to-earth and friendly during our video calls. I began to develop feelings for Jake, feeling eager to meet him in person because he came across as kind and respectful, unlike my ex. One evening, I was particularly upset about my past relationship, so I video called Jake again. He kept suggesting we should have an adventure together. He proposed we go to his workplace to watch a movie. It was late, close to midnight, but I decided to take a chance and meet him. When he arrived at my university, my friends saw him and commented on how nice and good-looking he was. I joined him in his car, and everything seemed normal. We reached his workplace, but then something unsettling happened. Jake realized he forgot his keys, and surprisingly, took out a small knife, claiming he knew a trick to open the door. He managed to unlock the door with the knife, which was alarming because there were no security alarms triggered. The place was upscale and well-maintained, yet the lack of security was strange. I tried to stay calm and give him the benefit of the doubt, thinking he might have genuinely forgotten his keys. But somewhere inside, I couldn't shake the feeling that this place might not actually be his workplace. We watched a movie and snuggled on the sofa. Things felt fine at that moment, and I began to think the place might indeed be his workplace considering how familiar he was with it. However, the way he opened the door with a knife still made me uncomfortable. Things quickly took a turn for the worse. As we got closer, Jake started making weird noises. It wasn't normal or attractive at all. He sounded really odd, almost scary. It was like something out of a strange movie, and it made me feel uneasy. Then, in the darkness of the room, I suddenly saw flashes. Jake had taken photos of me without asking. I was there, with no clothes on, and he was taking pictures. I immediately told him to delete them. He hesitated and didn't let me see his phone for a few moments. Finally, seeming annoyed, he deleted them, but I was sure he had sent them to someone else. I wasn't naive. I felt embarrassed and told him it was wrong, but he just said it was a harmless joke. A harmless joke. That's when I realized Jake might be dangerous. But in that moment, I doubted myself and thought I was overreacting. I gave him another chance and stayed next to him. Then he climbed on top of me, claiming he needed to text his sister. But then, he took another photo of me. He pretended to delete the photos again, but I was certain he was sending them to someone else. After that, I quickly got dressed. He offered to drive me back to my dorm. When I got back, I said goodbye to him and hoped I would never see him again. I blocked him on everything. I had once thought a surprise hike in the woods with a Tinder date was the creepiest thing, but this was on a whole new level. Now the thought of those photos being shared without my consent makes me sick. They could be anywhere on the internet, being seen by people I don't know. I don't think I'll be able to move past this for a very long time. Some time ago, I found myself really bored and had just ended a relationship. My housemate Jamie suggested I try out Tinder for fun. We spent time on the app, playfully chatting with matches and teasing guys who were clearly there just for quick flings. We never planned to actually meet anyone from the app. However, life had other plans, and Jamie and I had to move to different cities. In my new city, which was much busier, I kept using Tinder, mainly because I didn't know many people around. My experiences with Tinder dates were awful, one after the other. But then, I started talking to this nice-seeming guy. Let's call him Mark. He was 8 years my senior, which didn't bother me. Mark was part indigenous, with a tan skin tone that stood out next to my pale skin. He was shorter than me but very well built, with short brown hair and dark eyes that were almost black, topped with a confident, charming smile. We chatted every night for a week. I discovered we shared many interests, even the quirky ones that most people don't care about. I felt I could be completely open with him, and it felt wonderful. So I agreed to meet Mark one evening. He was going to pick me up and we planned to go to a local Tim Hortons for coffee. Since I don't drive, I gave him my address. He arrived in a company car, making him easy to spot. He looked even better than his photos. We talked on the drive to Tim Hortons and continued chatting there until the place closed at midnight. I learned a lot about him during that time. Mark had been married and had a son, but the marriage ended when he found out his wife was unfaithful. This had happened just a few months before we met. He shared stories about his challenging past, but emphasized how he was changing his life. This should have been a warning sign for me, but I tend to be open-minded and believe in second chances. Part of his past included time in jail, which he mentioned casually. I figured it was for something minor, like a small fight or marijuana possession, not uncommon in Canada. After the coffee shop closed, he drove me home. I told him I had a great time and asked him to text me once he got back to his place to ensure he got home safely. As I settled into bed that night, I couldn't help but feel a mix of excitement and nervousness about this new connection. Mark seemed like a great guy, but his casual mention of jail time lingered in my mind. However, I pushed those thoughts aside, choosing to focus on the positive aspects of our meeting. Little did I know, this was just the beginning of a series of events that would profoundly change my perspective on trust and relationships. In the following days, our conversations continued, delving deeper into our lives and experiences. Mark shared more about his efforts to turn his life around, while I opened up about my own challenges and aspirations. We planned to meet again soon, and I found myself eagerly anticipating our next encounter. But as the days turned to weeks, I began to notice subtle inconsistencies in Mark's stories. He would occasionally contradict himself, and sometimes he seemed evasive when I asked about specific details of his past. This raised red flags in my mind, but I brushed them off, attributing them to my overthinking. Our second meeting was set for a weekend brunch. I was looking forward to it, hoping to clarify some of the doubts that had crept into my mind. As the day approached, I couldn't shake off a feeling of unease, wondering if I really knew the person I was about to meet again. That night, as I was getting ready for bed, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Mark, asking if we could see each other again. Over the next couple of weeks, we went on several more dates, usually after his work, since he didn't go back to his place first. I often saw him in his work uniform, but one date was canceled because he got stopped by the police. He told me he was driving without a license due to unpaid parking tickets from when he was in jail. He suspected his ex tipped off the cops. I found this concerning, but I let it slide. After a few more dates, Mark invited me to spend a weekend at his place. I felt comfortable and excited about it. He picked me up in his company car, despite not having a valid license. On our way, he revealed he was a recovering addict living in a recovery house. This was a bit alarming, but I admired his efforts to improve. When we arrived at his place, he said we had to be quiet because I wasn't supposed to be there. His room was simple: a bed, a chair, a side table, and a dresser. It was messy, yet sparse. I sat on his bed while he left to drop off the car at his boss's place, instructing me not to open the door to anyone. I felt uneasy, but tried to ignore it. Later, Mark returned with a bottle of whiskey, explaining we had to be quiet about it since alcohol wasn't allowed in the recovery house. I'm not much of a drinker, but I didn't want to spoil his mood. We ordered pizza and watched Supernatural on Netflix. As the night went on, he drank steadily. At one point, he stood up in his boxers, revealing a poorly inked swastika tattoo on his thigh. He said he got it in jail. This shocked me, but I tried to overlook it and cuddled with him. The night turned intense. The next day, we watched more Netflix, and he played guitar for me. In the evening, since he didn't have the car, a friend of his had to drive me home. As we got closer to my place, I started feeling really anxious, almost having a panic attack. As I sat in the car, my mind raced with questions and doubts about Mark. The red flags I'd ignored now seemed glaringly obvious. The jail time, driving without a license, the secretiveness at the recovery house, and that disturbing tattoo. All these pieces formed a picture that I couldn't ignore anymore. I realized I had been overlooking significant warning signs because I wanted to believe in the best in him. The ride home felt like an eternity, with each passing minute amplifying my unease. When I finally reached my doorstep, I thanked his friend and hurried inside. Alone in my room, I reflected on the weekend. The excitement I had felt before now seemed foolish in the light of reality. I knew I had to make a decision about my relationship with Mark. Despite my desire to see the good in people, I couldn't ignore the signs that something wasn't right. The realization that I might be in a potentially dangerous situation hit me hard. As I lay in bed, I decided to take some time to think about my next steps, knowing that whatever I chose to do, it would be a decision made with a clearer, more cautious mind. Feeling uneasy, I told Mark I wasn't comfortable with his friend driving us. Mark, looking a bit annoyed, insisted that his friend was almost there, and it would be rude to cancel now. Eventually, he agreed to accompany me in the car. When I saw the friend, my discomfort grew. He looked rough, like someone from a notoriously bad area known for drug problems. His face was marked with sores and scabs, and he had an unsettling aura. Reluctantly, I got into the back seat while Mark sat in front. Throughout the ride, Mark held my hand, probably noticing how scared I was. His friend drove recklessly, speeding and swerving, which only added to my fear. I quietly cried during the ride, and the friend laughed mockingly, asking if I was scared of him. I didn't respond, but inside I was terrified. When we finally reached my place, Mark walked me to my door, apologizing with a sad look in his eyes. I rushed inside and spent the night crying in my bed. Mark texted me later, apologizing again, but then I didn't hear from him for a couple of days. When I finally got a reply, he explained that he was upset with his friend that night. We continued talking for a few days, but then he stopped responding. As a recovering addict, this silence worried me even more. I called and texted him repeatedly, growing increasingly anxious. In a moment of impulse, I decided to search his full name in public records, something I should have done earlier. I found a list of parking and speeding tickets, but what truly caught my eye was an entry for aggravated assault. Unable to access more details, I searched his name and city online and found a news article from 10 years ago. The article detailed how Mark and 3 others had been arrested for a brutal home invasion and stabbing, believed to be gang-related. They had attacked a man in his home, stabbing him multiple times. Although the victim survived, Mark was initially charged with attempted murder. He got a reduced sentence for testifying against the others, resulting in an aggravated assault charge and a 5-year jail term. This was far more serious than what Mark had portrayed. I was in shock. I texted Mark, telling him to never contact me again, and warning him not to come near my place. I blocked him on all social media and my phone. As I sat there, numb and shaking, the gravity of the situation hit me. I had been so close to someone with such a violent past without fully realizing it. The charming man I thought I knew was a facade, masking a history of violence and deceit. I felt betrayed, scared, and angry at myself for ignoring all the warning signs. I spent the next few days in a daze, trying to process everything. The fear of him possibly showing up at my door lingered in my mind, keeping me on edge. I decided to confide in a close friend, seeking comfort and advice on how to handle the situation. My friend was equally shocked and concerned, insisting that I should report my experience to the authorities, just to be safe. As I lay awake at night, I couldn't help but wonder how many others like Mark were out there, hiding their true selves behind a mask of charm and deceit. This experience was a harsh lesson in trust and the importance of being cautious, especially in the world of online dating. Throughout this ordeal, I kept my old friend Jess in the loop. A few days after the shocking discovery about Mark, I shared the latest update with her. I was pretty upset and venting to her about everything. Jess, always looking out for me, asked if there was anything she could do to help. In a half-joking, half-serious tone, I said it would make me feel better if she called Mark and gave him a piece of her mind. To my surprise, she was up for it. She rarely knew people by their real names, preferring nicknames instead. I laughed, half thinking she wasn't serious, but I sent her Mark's name and number anyway. Moments later, Jess texted me, saying she had called him and had a go at him, calling him out for his behavior. We shared a laugh over it, and I felt a bit lighter thanks to her support. But then, about 30 minutes later, my doorbell rang. I was in the basement at the time, so it took me a while to get to the stairs. I wasn't expecting anyone, and the sudden ring made me cautious. Suddenly, there was a loud, forceful knock that startled me. I immediately called my dad for advice. He told me to stay calm and avoid being seen through the windows. I crept up to the second floor and peered through the curtains. There was a shadowy figure standing at my door, unrecognizable. The knocking turned into an angry pounding that set my heart racing. I ducked under the window, feeling scared. This went on for about 20 minutes before it suddenly stopped. When my phone buzzed, it made me jump. It was my dad on the line. He had called a family friend who was a police officer living nearby. My dad explained that the officer had agreed to check things out. Given that we lived in a townhouse complex, the houses were close together, so it was easy for the officer to come by quickly. Later, my dad visited me to make sure I was okay. He said the officer had stood on the front step in his uniform, and the person at my door had seen him and driven away. After this incident, I deleted my Tinder account and swore off dating apps. This experience had made me extremely wary of meeting new people. I started running background checks on almost everyone new I met. My anxiety levels went through the roof, and I found myself leaving the house less and less, almost never going out now. The takeaway from all this is a stark reminder. When you're meeting people online, you never truly know who they are. It's crucial to be cautious when meeting strangers. You can never be sure of the danger you might be walking into. And sometimes, it's best to listen to your instincts. They might just save your life.